My Lords, I rise to offer the Green Group's support for this amendment. Your Lordship's House will have noticed that we're not quite as crowded as we were when we were debating Lord Dubb's amendment. But I'd invite your Lordships to consider all the people who aren't here, the people who are now out in our supermarkets, in our streets, in our workplaces, in our wilderness areas. We've been talking about these as the EU standards, but I would call these the people's standards, because these are standards that were won by campaigns, by struggles, by people in the UK and across the EU who stood up against the lobbyists, stood up against the corporate interests, stood up against those who have so much power in deciding the kind of standards in places like the United States of America, stood up for something better. Now, the government keeps saying that it wants to have higher standards than these people's standards that we've had to fight so hard to get. Well, I entirely accept the need for those much higher standards. In this hugely nature-depleted country, where we are collectively consuming the resources of 3 planets, our share of 3 planets every year, although we only have one, where we have pumping out so much greenhouse gases, where, as the noble Lord Hendy so eloquently outlined, we have people in really desperate workplace situations. We do need better standards, but these people's standards are a foundation. Now, I'm sure we're going to hear from the benches opposite very often and crucially about the UK's crucial place in the UN climate talks, COP26 this year. Well, I would ask your Lordship's House to consider what kind of message this amendment, if the government does not incorporate it into the Withdrawal Agreement Bill, what kind of message that is sending about us as the chair of COP26.
My Lords, this amendment